Every individual, every company produces data constantly, and this amount of data is exponentially increasing. This brings along new, unique challenges, but also opportunities. And I personally come from the financial industry. I've seen the challenges that banks and financial service providers have with regulatory requirements, with the data they produce. And I have found a new home with the Bitcoin Association, a Swiss nonprofit that supports businesses and entrepreneurs in exploring this new technology in order to be able to better work, process, analyze, monetize, and store data. Here with me are 4 pioneers in the industry, and I welcome you guys, and I would love to quickly give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, your business, and how you're dealing with data for work processes and business processes.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you here today. My name is Jorge Sebastio. I had a few organizations that actually focus on the area of blockchain. One of them we founded in Oslo, and we set up a meeting originally in London when we met together. It's the Global Blockchain Organization, which is helping governments, private, and others drive the successful implementation of blockchain. So it's completely technology agnostic, and is trying to introduce, obviously, the best practices on how to use blockchain. I've been in this region for now 25 years, so it's been my home. I'm originally from Portugal and from Canada. And obviously, we look at blockchain as a new operating system. So it's a technology that actually drives and enables trust. So one of the key elements of today's organizations is data. As you know, the term that has been coined before is the new oil is data. So specifically, since oil is a very important resource in the Middle East, I think it catches people's attention. But it's not just any data. You want data that has the necessary amount of density, data that has the necessary amount of quality, trust. And once you combine all these elements together, then you can use data to help drive business, whether that business happens to be investment, trading, or actually power your own organizations. Because today's modern big data and artificial intelligence engines require good quality data to actually move forward.
My name is Salman Anjum. I'm the chief mate for Matesul. We do smart solutions with the integrity and intelligence. So integrity will come from the technology which we are discussing, the blockchain, and intelligence, of course, through AI. So we believe that there is as George mentioned about the value of the data, yes, but 10 years back, the problems with data were different. Now, the problems with the data are different. How come they are different? Back then, we were thinking of how to generate them, how to secure the data. Now, we are planning to do how to herd the data in a right way so that we can get the best out of it, more effectiveness, more efficiency. And that's what we do, and we'll share a little bit more about our projects, how the data is getting optimized with the blockchain platforms. Moving forward.
So my name is Torje. I'm from Abendum, which is powered by Unisat. I'm going to talk about accounting and blockchain. Now, hang with me, because even though it's accounting, you don't have to sleep. It's very important. Why is accounting important? Why Abendum? We need to redefine the quality of accounting records. In the history of accounting, there has been scandals, a lot of scandals. And a missing piece throughout the whole of history has been a shared public ledger. This has now emerged in a public blockchain. Going back to the Tinis books in northern Italy, 1300, where double entry accounting emerged. At the same time, the concept of 2 books, which are still haunting us today, are with us. So we're looking at solutions to this by connecting accounting records to the public blockchain. So yeah, that's Abendum. And next.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave Washburn. I'm CEO of nChain Group. So nChain is an organization that's been around for about 5 years. We originally started focusing on research in the blockchain space, and now we're up to about 220 people encompassing research and what we think is one of the largest, most experienced blockchain engineering teams in the world. It's a pleasure to be on stage with these gentlemen because we're all singing from the same song sheet here when it comes to data, concepts of data, how we think it should be accessed. And I completely agree that data is going to be the most valuable commodity of the next decade. When I talk about the concept of monetary value of data, I like to use a really simple equation of data plus money equals information. And without one of those two components, it's got really low value. So if it's just a set of numbers, that doesn't really mean much. But if we can attach monetary value to it, then it becomes information. Information is what's really valuable to us.
Thank you, Dave, and I want to stay right here with you. There is a cost to putting data on the blockchain, and you wouldn't put information on the blockchain and pay for it if it wasn't valuable to you in some form. With your experience working with enterprises, governments, what are the low-hanging fruits? What are the first work processes and kind of business processes that will be addressed?
Yeah, so let's take a step back for a second, and I think one of the most crucial parts when we talk about getting data on blockchain is about how it's structured, how it's organized, how it can be accessed, and what it costs to do so. One of the inventions that came out of nChain is something called the MetaNet. So MetaNet you can think of as the internet for blockchain. So it's a relatively complex hierarchical structure for data on blockchain. But the really key element to it is by structuring it this way and being done on the Bitcoin SV public blockchain, it allows for concepts of permissioned access. And that's a really, really critical function to ascribing monetary value to it. So if it's my data, I can access it, but if I grant you permission to one subset of that data and you're going to pay me for it, I'm really interested in making sure that data is accessible, is accurate, and is transparent. But this concept of permissioned access is really, really critical because that allows storage of really sensitive data that we know can't be accessed by people who do not have permission to it. Really fundamental concept here.
Thank you, Dave. I want to maybe extend the same question to Jorge. What, in your view, are the easiest use cases to address?
Actually, the easiest low-hanging fruit are in various areas. I would say the first one is definitely in the area of identity management. So you can easily create the personal passport of the individuals because with blockchain, it becomes almost a one-to-one relationship and the data is protected by the private key. Places where this has been used, we have, for example, here in Dubai, where if somebody happens to lose their passport, they're actually using blockchain to be able to retrieve the person's identity and restore that passport information in a few hours. So the person has mobility at the airport. I would think the second one is definitely in the area of currencies and finance. And I think most governments today are looking in a serious way at CBDC. CBDC definitely stands for central bank digital currencies, very different to many of the other digital currencies that exist. Of course, UAE has tried the e-dirham before, but you kind of think of it as like e-dirham on blockchain. Of course, this has a lot of big advantages for the government in terms of being able to track financial activity, even in some cases help also collect taxes because the underground economy basically disappears. And I think the third area is a very interesting one that I think is extremely important, and it addresses one of the key functionalities that blockchain has, which is decentralization. One of the key elements that blockchain, especially what we call the blockchain powered by smart contracts, is the capability of introducing DAOs. DAOs is a term in blockchains that stands for Dynamic Autonomous Organizations. So this is the capability of actually creating your organization relationships directly on the blockchain and automatically power your business relationships to this contract. I spent about 5.5 years as CTO of Huawei, and one of the projects was done with the largest telecom organization in the world. And what they did is they did a smart contract-driven relationship between this telecom organization and all its suppliers. Because there's a lot of financial adjustments that get done, whether it's the number of mobiles delivered, cellular towers, or spare parts. Guess what? This organization based in Europe is going to save $100 million because of the smart contract paperwork saving in the adjustments of financial transactions. So this is a low-hanging fruit because it has a direct impact on the business. So one is about identity, so you own your data. The second one is about government collecting financial information and being self-sufficient. And the third one is an example from the private sector.
I can already tell there is really two avenues exploring new business models, as you can now monetize and price data efficiently and at very low levels. At the same time, it allows for operational efficiency. Many people underestimate the operational backend and the cost that is carried by that. Let's talk about breaking down data silos, and I want to extend this question to Torje. You have experience with that. Tell us more about how your business addresses the breaking down of data silos.
Yeah, so just to illustrate like a simple business process, and that was, it's always a pain point in audit is that something that takes time is to get external confirmations on accounting records. And not to bore you with external confirmations and all the standards, and don't fall asleep, but it's actually a very important procedure to get sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. And this was also addressed as one of the most serious breaches of auditors by the regulator. They see that this actually happens more than it should happen. So yeah, that's a pain point. So by trying to then use the public ledger to get the external confirmations there, that can really make this process way more efficient, so you can have more sufficiency of the evidence, and hopefully also the more appropriate by doing that. So yeah, also just mentioning the Norwegian regulator, it's called the Financial Supervisory Authority of Norway. Abendum was just last week officially included in the FinTech sandbox to look at this process, how it's been done, and to clarify regulatory uncertainties, because when accountants, auditors, blockchain is new, and they look at this and they might have some regulatory, so that's valuable, and also for regulators to come in and learn more and see more and see hands-on what's going on. And, yeah.
And just for the benefit of the audience, what is the customer base that you are addressing with your product?
So that would be those who produce the accounting records and those who are interested that accounting records are transparent. So that's a stakeholder, and the customers would then be like basically accountants who produce it, and then also the auditors. This is a huge value for auditors, so they can do their job way better. Yeah.
Muhammad, same question for you. Tell us more about InvoiceMate and how you address it with payables and invoicing.
Yes, taking forward the accounting side. So now there is a document named as invoice. 5.5 billion invoices are generated and circulated in a year. So this is the world's most common commercial document. So we identified that there is always, as a vendor and sometimes as a client, we all have identified there are pain points in this process flow. So InvoiceMate is the solution, basically powered by the blockchain, and what it does basically, it sits on the top of the existing ERPs and the accounting packages and serve the accounting function, a very specific function, and that is vendor management and plus invoice management, payment management on blockchain. What value it brings in? Again, we have seen a lot of fake, false invoices, duplications and all that. Manual processes create a lot of errors, and throughout the chain of this invoice processing, millions of other errors and hiccups show up. When it is all happening on a blockchain-powered platform, things go smooth, cross-organizational collaboration happens, and we get the best out of it through the integrity of that whole data and process flow. So this is the right application. You were talking about what are the low-hanging fruits from the technology of blockchain. We are talking about data. Data is basically the lifeblood of any organization. And yes, one of the lifeblood of any organization is invoicing. So we are trying to solve that very specific, very sharp solution problem so that things get visible, what blockchain can do for the world of business, real business we are talking about. It's not going to just be the tokenization offering, it's basically a real life business solution for every vertical of business. Small organizations to large organizations, they all do invoicing. So something for everyone.
Lovely. Let's move on to honesty and integrity of data. Dave, why did you choose to work on the BSV blockchain, and how do you view permissioned versus public blockchains?
Yeah, I would echo some of the comments that a few panelists made earlier this morning, and I think it was Stefan who said it, that there are no private blockchains, they're distributed databases and completely different ballgame completely. So for us, our engineering team has actually been responsible for the majority of the build out of the Bitcoin SV protocol. So it's an obvious choice for us. We know it better than probably anyone else. But the benefits are really clear, and it comes down to scaling. So the ability to really have no limits on the amount of data that can be stored in each block, and then combined with the extremely low transaction fees right now, it's a magical combination that allows any business to scale. So ultimately, when we look at the solutions that we're looking at bringing into the business world, we think about solutions, not blockchains, in terms of how we face our customers. So ultimately, as long as the customer doesn't feel any friction or pain points associated with achieving their business goals, then we've done our job properly.
And can you name a couple of other examples of projects you're dealing with so that people have a better understanding of what it is?
Sure. So on one end of the spectrum, in the healthcare space, working with a company called EHR Data that a few of you have heard about here. And then that one's really simple in terms of bringing small details like every single piece of healthcare information into one single source of truth, interoperable piece of data that can allow better healthcare and the opportunity for individuals to monetize it. So that's on one end of the spectrum. The other end, we are very close to launching our platform that we think is really going to be a business process gateway. So we're working with some of the larger business process management vendors to be able to have this solution platform that can integrate into businesses' existing business logic, abstract away all of the blockchain part of it, and just plug in directly to their existing systems. So that's when we think we've really been able to achieve success there.
Similar question for Jorge. You working in the region and being the CEO of Global Blockchain Organization, what are the projects and priorities you see within the region?
Definitely, I think one of the key milestones in the region today is regulatory acceptance. One of the leaders in the region obviously has been Bahrain through its sandbox that started almost 3 years ago. But not to be outdone, now we have similar work and more advanced work being done in DMCC, in ADGM. So if we want to bring value to data, especially if we're talking about digital assets, whether it happens to be real estate tokenization, company shares, funds, sukuks, etc., you need regulatory authority that is established in place, preferably through central bank authority, then through the various free zones that are in place. Once this framework for regulation is in place, then you can start the audit mechanisms that are actually ensure that the compliance actually takes place. And it's like any other system. Once you have data and you have trust, then you need to give credibility to the whole end-to-end And the biggest challenges is always in regulatory, simply because technology moves faster. Regulation tends to try to catch up because they need to first understand what is the technology capable of. And I think one is to understand that technology is moving faster. We are going beyond now digital assets, especially many of you probably heard about NFTs, non-fungible tokens. So this is the new revolution just around the door, and it's introducing a whole new generation of business models. And you're going to say, oh, is this services? Is it an asset? Is it a utility? So it needs to come to the table to address that almost immediately, or even better, is it a taxable NFT or not? Are we going to put VAT on the NFTs and so on?
No, I fully hear you and can only second that. As we come to an end of this panel, what is your single ask, advice, recommendation to the business owners out there in the audience? If we can start with Jorge.
Actually, my advice to any business owners is experiment. Be ready to fail, but if you experiment enough, you will succeed. And bring on board people that give you advice by the experience that they have had in the past. So bring people that have done this before, transplant this to your own organization, and tune the knobs to fit your business needs.
Lovely. Mohammad?
Yes, I'll give you the example of Tesla announced that they will start using the Bitcoin, getting the Bitcoins for their sales. But they, after like 15, 20 days, they finally said, yes, now they can start. What was the gap for? It was basically they were preparing their systems, both processes and IT, for accepting the Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies. So I would be like to suggest everyone sitting here that this wave is now here. There is a new $1.8 trillion market segment, as the name of a digital assets, or you call it cryptocurrencies. It is now here. Adoption is here, and we need to now use the tools for using the best of this crypto economy. And like projects like ours, InvoiceMate, which will interact with you with this side of the economy, will be very handy. And similarly, there are other projects as well which will be enabling you for the connection between your real life business with the new economy segment named as digital assets or cryptocurrency. So please start using these tools to explore this new market segment, which is the future.
To end it and address the public-private discussion, the simple metaphor is, why would we have 3 different internets? It's more make more sense to have one. And the thing that's I can advise anyone to look up is, what does it mean that a public blockchain is secured by economics? Because that's important. And I think now it's really a period of pioneering. It's super interesting. So, yeah.
Dave?
Thanks. My advice when exploring blockchain is, don't be afraid of it. It sounds a little bit complex, but really do the diligence on the technology. The blockchain and cryptocurrency space is one like none other that I've seen in terms of how personalities seem to dominate things. And doing research is certainly not via social media. So don't be afraid of letting the real technology speak the truth.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, and also thank you for being pioneers and the daredevils out there trying new technology.
Thank you.